Thank you so much, Mary Jean, and thank you, Tina, for asking me to come tonight to facilitate this group. I am super excited to be here. I love it when seekers come together for the purpose of sharing ideas openly. And I love being a deliberate co-creator with all of you here. I think that this being a group that is open to all religions, all paths, and from the perspective that each one of us really is on our own path, we can't live anybody else's path. We can only follow our own. It makes sense to come together to discuss ways that we can all be in the same place but believe different things. Spirituality really is about practicing what we believe, and so it's important to, I think, be aware of what we believe and know that we have some choice in that. So the topic, I think, is quite appropriate for this particular group. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start with a presentation. It doesn't matter what you believe, but what you believe matters. Now, this might hit some people a little bit off because they might say it sure does matter what you believe, especially if you have grown up in a Christian background. It is said that it does matter what you believe, uh, and what to believe can be taught to you over your life. Most of our beliefs come from the first 7 years of life when things are pre-programmed into us before we really have the opportunity to know that we have the choice. So let me just go a little bit into why I would say that it doesn't matter. And the reason why I say it doesn't matter what you believe is simply because you can believe whatever you want. You get to choose what you believe, and nobody can choose for you. Nobody can force you to believe anything. They can maybe convince you, but you have to allow yourself to be convinced. And you certainly don't have the right to insist that the way you see things is the only correct way. So knowing that you have the choice in what you believe um, can help you understand why it doesn't matter. There's one thing that I really like to say with my beliefs is my beliefs do not require that you believe the same thing. And I think to have a forum such as this, that's got to be the basis for a lot of us to be able to allow each of us to be where we are on our path and believing what we believe. Also, you do have the opportunity at any time to change what you believe. Beliefs are not beliefs that you were pre-programmed with. It is not your destiny to have to believe that for the rest of your life. You can change what you believe. You can pick and choose and an interesting quote that I love from Abraham Hicks about beliefs is we just really do have a free will to choose what we believe, and your will is so free that you can choose bondage. Your natural state of being is so abundant that you can choose an abundance of lack. So it's interesting how our beliefs can really form what we experience and how we experience life. Why do I say it matters what you believe? Because what you believe really shapes how you experience your world. Your experience will show you what you believe is true. A belief really is simply just a thought that you think over and over again until you start to say it out loud. And when you start to say it out loud, you will probably first come across someone who doesn't really believe the same thing and will argue, and it will give you an opportunity to argue your belief and say what your belief is. And then once you do that often enough, you'll start to run into people who believe the same things and will really validate what you believe and help you to bring that belief to be a truth in your world. When I say my beliefs don't require that you believe the same thing, I really say that from a place of, if you need someone to validate what you believe by agreeing with you, that implies that you have some doubt yourself about what it is you really do believe. And so maybe just explore a little bit about whether you truly do believe that, or if it's just a belief that's forming, and whether you want to form it or not. Choosing what you believe is a big responsibility, and this was why a lot of people just don't take a look really at what they believe and consciously choose what to believe and whether to change some of the pre-programming that they have. It is a big responsibility, owning what goes on in your life, and knowing that everything that happens is in your experience is a result of what you believe, and that just is a responsibility that that can be challenging, but definitely worthwhile, because it really is where all your power is when you don't choose to be responsible for your beliefs and point your finger elsewhere by judging things that are happening around you. That really is disempowering, both to you and the people that are around you. So one of the parts of this evening then, or the main part of this evening's group, is to go into the breakout rooms. So things to remember when we're going to the breakout rooms is to respect others' ideas and beliefs as they are being shared, and go in with the intent to listen rather than to talk. When I give you these questions and these things to think about for the discussion, some ideas are going to come very quickly to you, but just keep in mind that we, as well as having something to share, we have something to receive from the people that we're meeting with as well. And so go with the intent to listen, but also be willing to share. When it is your turn to talk, please be willing to share your ideas so that you can be heard as well. If you disagree with other people's ideas, you can still find it interesting. This is something that I learned from our very own Tina Heathers. Isn't that interesting? I never heard it put quite that way before. And that's a really nice way of just accepting someone's ideas without having to agree or disagree. Just find it interesting. And then we will, if each of the groups could choose one person to summarize when we come back to the main group. I'm not sure, Mary Jean, do we know how many groups we have tonight?
I've created 3 different groups, so there should be about 4 people or so in each group.
Okay, so with that many groups, we'll have some nice times to summarize at the end. So feel free to take, 2 or 3 minutes to summarize your group's discussion. Before I give the topic or the questions and topics for discussion, does anyone have any questions? And Tina, if you could monitor if any questions come in, I would appreciate that.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. And if there's nothing coming in, I will just continue on. So our questions for our discussion in our breakout groups tonight. First of all, are you aware of what you believe? So I'd like each of you to identify one limiting belief that you feel is no longer serving you. A lot of the beliefs that we have, they may have served us at one point in time, but they no longer do. I will give you an example. I'm going to give you an example through the different questions, just so you see how it will flow. So my example for this one is, and some of you have heard this being discussed for me before, it is one of my favorite topics because I change my beliefs a lot about it all the time. But my relationship with my mom, And I had this belief for a long time with my mom that she just didn't get me. She just wasn't getting something about me. And whenever we would talk, she would say to me, "You're just missing something." And we would try so hard for the other person to hear what we were saying. And both of us were saying to the other person, "You're just missing something. You're missing something. You're not hearing me, but you're missing this." And so I had a belief about my mom that she was missing something, and that I missed something in her. So let's go on to the next part of it. Decide if you are willing to let that belief go. You might notice that it's a limiting belief and you might want to hold on to it. A quick example of this is some people have a great deal of difficulty letting go of illness. I myself had a great deal of difficulty letting go of illness just because it was quite a bit of my identity. I really identified with it. So in order to change a belief, you really have to be willing to let go of it. You've got to be able to be willing to look at the situation differently. So I had to look at my mom differently. I had to say, okay, maybe she's not missing something. Maybe she really does have something important that I need to listen to. And maybe I could listen to her differently and try and understand her differently. And maybe I could see that she's not missing something. And so I started to tell myself different things about it as your self-talk goes along with it. And that's part of changing your belief. Can you rewrite your story? So once you decide what the limiting belief is, decide whether you're willing to really look at that differently and move forward in a different direction from that belief to believe something different. And then what would that new belief look like? How can you change the story? What can you change differently? So I started saying, my mom really does get me. And, God's got her. I'm not going to be scared about mom because I trust God and I know that he's got her. I know that they've got a great relationship. I know that they are in communication, and wherever she's at, God is meeting her where she's at, and I've got to let that happen, whatever she's ready for. And I just kept saying these things over and over. And I know she gets me. I know we get each other. I know neither one of us is missing anything. We've got this because we've got God. Both of us have God on our side. And so interesting how our relationship and our talks changed. She started listening to me more. She started saying, "Wow, I never heard it like that before." And I started hearing her say things in a totally different way, much less judgmental than she had been. So it really changed our relationship, just taking a look at this one belief and turning it around in a different direction. So that's what I'd like you to take to your breakout groups tonight, is those 3 questions. I hope you have fun with that and enjoy sharing with each other and learning. Mary Jean, I'll pass it to you to break
All
everyone
right,
up.
perfect.